Welcome back to Clash of Cultures. Today we're going to be talking about the top teams who improved from the 2022 season heading into the 2023 season. Today we're only going to be doing 4 teams each just to kind of keep the video a little bit shorter. But as always, before we get into talking about the football, if you guys are new to the channel, please like, comment down below, subscribe, hit the notification bell so you guys don't miss an upload. And as always, make sure that when our videos do go live, you guys comment immediately. Try to be the first ones on here in the comment section so you can be featured as the comment of the day. Today, the comment of the day comes from Thomas Gilbert 7039 from the top 5 quarterbacks from the Big 12 video. He says Dylan Gabriel did not play against Texas when OU got blown out. So if you guys watched in that video, that was something that I said. And I actually didn't know that he didn't play. At least I didn't think I thought that he only missed a portion of that game. But after kind of going back and looking, they had like 5 or 6 guys who threw a pass in that game, which is kind of crazy. So obviously that played a big factor in them losing. But I did respond to him saying, I don't know if him playing, they could have won that game. 49-0 is a ridiculous loss. I think it would have been a more respectable game, but I think Texas was just a better team that day. But getting into the video today, like I said, we're going to be doing 4 teams each for the most improved. There could be a laundry list of teams that we could be naming. I tried to name teams that my dad was not going to name. And so I'll go ahead and go first. So my number 4 most improved team heading into, and I did put them in order, but heading into the 2023 season. Wait, actually, before I name it, did you just go off of roster or did you like put anything else into like factors?
Yeah, I mean, you'll see.
Talk about it at all. Okay.
You'll see. Yeah.
Okay. So my number 4 team is Florida State. The reason being is they're obviously going to be a playoff contender this year. Heading into last year, they were not in playoff conversations. Obviously the LSU game early kind of brought them back into national championship type conversations. But now you bring back Jordan Travis, who's a Heisman hopeful. You had a monster of a transfer portal class, I would say, this offseason. I believe let me pull up the rankings really quick. I have it pulled up. So they had the number 4 ranked transfer portal class, according to 24/7 Sports. So very respectable. 10 commits, 8 4-stars. 8 of those guys are 4-stars, who I would assume are all going to be week 1, major factors heading into the rematch against LSU. Obviously bringing over what I deem to be the best wide receiver in the transfer portal class with Keon Coleman. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure he's a consensus number 1 wide receiver, if not top 2 or 3. So I think that's going to be big for them. Obviously, they have Johnny Wilson coming back, but I think Keon Coleman brings a different factor to that offense, helping out Jordan Travis. You bring over Jaheim Bell from South Carolina, who's a solid tight end. They're probably going to use him out as a wide receiver as well. In the recruiting class, they had the number 18th rated recruiting class this year, which isn't amazing, but it's still a top 25 class. And they're a veteran team, so I don't think a lot of those guys are going to start immediately, but it's just more depth on their roster. So that's why I have them as the number 4 most improved team this year.
All right, my number 4, I'm sure, I almost guarantee that if you ask Steven to name my list, he could probably get 3 or 4 of my guys. My first one is Colorado. And when I say Colorado, this was a 1-11 team last year. Now, you were mentioning, and I don't have it up, you were mentioning the top transfer classes. Colorado's number 1, correct?
They're number 2.
Okay, so number 2.
According to 24/7 Sports.
No, that's fine.
There's a bunch of different outlets, but I just went off of this one.
Yeah, they've completely turned this roster around. And we know some of the names: Shador, Travis Hunter, Shiloh, Levante Bentley. We can go down the list. It is a matter of how it meshes. But when I'm talking about improvement, to improve from 1-11, 6-6 is a major improvement from that. So I don't think it's going to take much for Coach Sanders, for Coach Prime, whatever he wants to be called, to improve from Colorado last year. I think you're going to see more effort. I think you're going to see more talent. And again, I'm not saying that they're going to compete in the Pac-12 this year, but I think this is a better team. And the players that they lost, I think they have upgraded in almost position for position, player for player. They've brought back a better player. Remember, Shador, I think, was a 4-star. Travis Hunter was the number 1 player in his class, depending on, again, what recruiting service you look at. And we can kind of go down this list of guys that were 3, 4, and 5-star players. To include McLean, who was a 5-star cornerback coming in this year. So we can go down a list of 3, 4, and 5-star players that are now on this team. Again, it all has to mesh. Like I said, I'm not expecting them to make big noise in the Pac-12, but I think at the end of the year, they are almost guaranteed to lead the Power Five in win-loss differential, and I'm talking about the change in what their record was last year to this year.
So, just before I go on to my number 3, I kind of made my list based on how much better they're going to be from last year to this year. Obviously, you're a lot higher on Colorado than I am. That's the only reason why they didn't make my list, and I knew you were going to have them. But I don't know how much better they're going to be from 1-11. I mean, I think they're going to go 4-8 or around there. That's the only reason why they didn't make my list. My number 3, but there is one team on this list that kind of contradicts that statement, but that's just because they had such a good recruiting class and such a good transfer class that I had to put them on here.
I think we're going to have one team the same, but I don't think you're going to have 3 of my 4.
Okay, so my number 3 is Miami. I think Miami is going to have a really good season this year. Again, talking about the recruiting rankings, they had the number 5 recruiting class, which is elite. When you're talking about Alabama, the LSUs, the Georgias, the Clemsons, they're getting right back into the thick of things on the recruiting trail. And then you look at their transfer class. When you look at their transfer class, they had the number 7 transfer class according to 24/7 Sports, 6 4-stars, 7 3-stars. You obviously brought back Tyler Van Dyke. You bring over a new offensive coordinator. So I think the reason why I asked you a second ago, or when the video first started, is how you compiled this list is because coaching also played a big factor for me. And I'm sure Dion helped you kind of come with that decision as well with Colorado. But the OC at Miami is going to bring more life to this offense. So that played a major factor. And they went 5-7 last year. I don't expect them to be under 500 this year. I think they're going to be a lot better team. A lot of people have them competing for the ACC this year. I would assume they go 8-4, maybe 9-3, right around there. I don't know the schedule off the top of my head. But I think they're going to be far better than 5-7. So this was my number 3 team, was Miami.
So my number 3 team is the one team I think we may have alike. This is the one team, so I'm going to get them out of the way so I can go ahead and say that I set them first. My number 3 team is Oklahoma. I do not have Oklahoma on my list. Oh, I'm actually shocked. Oklahoma, and yeah, what we would all probably call a very bad season last year for Oklahoma standards, right? I think Oklahoma had gone 5-6 years, something like that, with no more than 2 losses. But when you look at it, the game to Kansas State was was single-digit loss. Obviously, they got blown out by TCU, blown out by Texas. But the game to Baylor, a 3-point loss. The game to West Virginia, a 3-point loss. The game to Texas Tech, a 3-point loss. The game to Florida State, a 3-point loss. So what, 5 or 6 games, we're talking about single digits and or 1 possession. Now we talk about Dylan Gabriel coming back, and we've done a whole video on them. I think also this is Brett Venables' second year as a head coach. I think he's going to figure out some of these things. I think he is going to be a better coach. Now that you got to remember what happened to Oklahoma as Lincoln Riley left for USC and Brett Venables came in. That whole roster got turned around. All the players that we thought that were going to be big contributors to Oklahoma, almost to a person left, and they went to either USC or some other place. And he really got to Oklahoma with a decimated roster and had to almost put it back together. I think he did a good job. I think you start to see that smooth out this year. I think they have a major upgrade, and I suspect they are going to be in the thick of the Pac-12 championship this year. Big 12. Oh, that's Big 12. I'm sorry.
Okay, so my number 2 team is a team that I don't know if it's going to raise eyebrows. You might be a little shocked me naming this team, but again, I think recruiting wise, I mean, you had a top 6 class. You had the number 1 transfer class in all of college football. It's the LSU Tigers. Obviously, LSU were fighting for. Go ahead.
They were in the SEC championship last year.
Again, and so this is what I said when I said there's one team on my list that contradicts my statement of I think they're going to be severely better. I think their floor is where they were last year, and I think they have a solid chance to win the SEC. But when you look at their transfer rankings, you bring in a 5-star, you bring in 8 4-stars, you have the number 6 overall recruiting class, and you don't really lose anything to the draft. I think that's why I look at a team where it's obviously a veteran team, and you're bringing in, again, multiple elite defensive backs. I mean, that's the defensive back category or position is the only position you could say where they really lost something. You bring in a 5-star in Denver Harris out of Texas A&M corner, Zy Alexander out of Samford, I believe he went to. Southeast Louisiana. So you bring in Zy Alexander, corner, 4-star. You bring over J.K. Johnson, Ohio State, 4-star, and then Deuce Chestnut, who was the leader of the Syracuse defense, and he's another 4-star. And then you obviously bring over Walker Howard. Obviously Walker Howard left. But that didn't affect the transfer portal class because you still have arguably a top 3 quarterback in all of college football. So when I look at what they lost compared to what they gained, I think improvement is the key word for that. And again, this is the title of the video. So this is going to be, I'm not high on LSU. Those of you guys who watched the video, I don't think they're going to win the SEC, but I think they're going to be an improved team. I think they're going to be significantly better than they were last year. Does that translate onto the field? We have yet to realize that. We'll see, in the next couple of months. But I think when you're talking about position for position, I don't think this team got worse, and I don't think they stayed stagnant. And that's just based off of, again, if you look at the transfer portal rankings, you initially thought Colorado had the best transfer portal class, I would say. So Colorado brought over 1 5-star in Travis Hunter and 5 4-stars. But the reason they have a number 2 class is because of the amount of 3-stars they brought over. Yeah. 3-stars aren't really moving the needle when you're talking about a Power 5 team. They have 44 3-star players. So I don't know how many of those players are going to be really big factors for them. But when you have 51 commits and other teams only have 10, your rating is going to be higher because you're bringing in so much. So I really don't know. It's more so for them quantity over quality, I would say, because we don't know how much of those players are actually going to be, pan out. So when LSU brought over, the 1 5-star and 8 4-stars, I had to give them the nod as well as the number 6 recruiting class, as well as bringing back, obviously, a top 3 quarterback. So they were my number 2 team.
Okay. My number 2 team is Arkansas. Arkansas finished 7-6 last year. But again, and just like I mentioned with Oklahoma, you can look at some of these games. So Texas A&M, they lost by 2 points. They lost to Liberty, but they lost by 2 points. They lost to Missouri by 2 points. They lost to LSU by 3 points. They're bringing back, as we all know, if you watch our Arkansas video, 2 of the most dynamic, most exciting players in the SEC in KJ Jefferson, their starting quarterback, and Raheem Sanders, maybe the best returning running back in the SEC. So if you've seen the video that we did on Arkansas, I had them going 9-3 with a ceiling of 11-1. This team may be very, very good. And like I said, this was a 1 game above 500 team last year. I suspect, again, obviously, that they're going to be much improved up to playing in the SEC championship. So, yeah, that's my number 2 team. I think Arkansas is going to be tough. In what may be outside of LSU, and I have higher hopes for LSU than maybe Steven does. I think Alabama may be down this year. And then I think you have a bunch of decent teams in the SEC West as you look at kind of their schedule. If Arkansas was going to make noise, I think this is the year in which they do it.
Alrighty. So, 1 second, my phone's not even charging. So this one is kind of a writing on the wall kind of pick. Those of you guys who've been here for the last month, and 85 to 90% of you guys started following our channel about a month ago. So I feel as though the number 1 most improved team heading into 2023 season, based off what they did last year and what they're going to do this year, is the Nebraska Cornhuskers.
I knew
the reason why they obviously had a top 25 recruiting class, number 25 to be exact. But they didn't have the best transfer portal, but you still brought over significant 4-stars and 3-stars from significant colleges in Georgia. Jeff Sims coming over from Georgia Tech. You brought over a few DBs from Florida, I believe. Not only that, you bring over Matt Rule. You sign Matt Rule, and I think locking him in as your head coach, he's proved to be a solid college football head coach. He's, to me, right around top 15 or so when you're talking about head coaches in college football. I would say we're dropping a top 10 college football head coaches in the next week or two. So make sure you guys stick around for that. But he's top 15 or so, in my opinion. And I think when you talk about a blue blood like Nebraska, a powerhouse program, having a top 15 or so coach is just going to elevate them. I don't know the record off the top of my head from last year, but I
Who?
can. Nebraska.
I don't know it off the top
I'll
of my
tell y'all
head.
right now. So last year they went 4-8. Those of you guys who watched my prediction, I had them going 10-2 this year. But I think they're at least going to go 8-4. So I think, even if we want to say on the low end, they go 7-5. That's a 3-game swing. I think a 3-game improvement is going to be bigger than perhaps anybody on this list that we've named. Colorado might be around 3 or 4 games. Miami might be around 3 or 4 games. So, and I think the difference is Nebraska's playing in the Big Ten, which is a little bit tougher than the ACC and the Pac-12. Obviously, last year it wasn't. I mean, this year the Pac-12 is going to be a little bit tougher, but traditionally, historically, I think the Big Ten is a little bit better in both conferences. So I think Nebraska doing that proves a little bit more, especially because they're not having the best recruiting class. They have a top 25 class. They didn't have the best transfer portal class. It's really going to be based off of coaching and schemes and, kind of developing the players you have. So I'm excited to see what Nebraska does this year. I have a few friends that are diehard Nebraska fans. And I never thought that I would be, talking about Nebraska in this light. So it's going to be different. But that's who I have at number 1.
My number 1 team, if you watch this channel, I've mentioned them a couple times being much better than I think their last year record was, and probably most other people. I'm probably out on a limb. You may not find another report that has them in the most improved teams. I have Boston College. Boston College went 3-9 last year, but Jurkovic, as we talked about, transferred out. Moorhead, huh?
His name is Jerkovich, bro.
Yeah, whatever it is, I said it right. Emmett Moorhead came in and looked like he was something. Now we know they lost Zay Flowers, but they bring back their running backs, and I just have a feeling about Boston College. I believe that they're going to be in the thick of the ACC this year. Again, I don't know why. I believe that this is going to be a good team. Like I said, from 3-9, I suspect that they're going to be over 500, even in what I think is a very good ACC. I like what they've done. The line is going to be much better. And like I said, I think Moorhead is a more dynamic quarterback than Jaravicius. Lucius Jaravicius.
Phil Jerkovich.
I think he's much more dynamic. I think he's going to be really good. I think he's going to end up, and remember, you heard it here first, I think at the end of the season, he's going to be one of the breakout stars of this college football season.
Okay. I don't know much about him, so I will definitely give you
your flowers. ACC guy.
Yeah, but, I mean, did he even start last year?
He started like the last 5 games.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't watching much Boston College football when they were 3-9 last year, but
I respect that.
Nonetheless, that is our top, I guess, 4. We'll just say best or most improved teams heading into this season. Let us know down below what teams that you think are going to be most improved, what teams you guys disagree with. But before we head out, let's go ahead and do this trivia. So trivia is going to be, I don't know off the top of my head, but I know this one. Okay. So this trivia comes from Alex down Corbin? In the Corbin. Okay. You're giving out his government. That's crazy.
That's that motherfucking name, Alex Corbin. He's on Facebook. Google, look at him on Facebook. He's the white guy.
That's crazy. But he wants to know, can you name the 2 teams that played in the first ever college football game?
Harvard and Yale?
No.
Army and Navy?
No. It was in 1869, if that helps at all.
Yeah. Not Army, Navy, not Harvard, Yale. Princeton and Yale?
Princeton is correct. One more of the team.
Princeton.
Big Ten.
Penn State?
No.
Michigan?
No. A smaller school in the Big Ten.
Rutgers
and Princeton. All right, so that's the first one. There's 2 questions. So the second question is, this one's going to be multiple choice.
Okay.
This one comes from Lork Later 3076. He had 2 questions, but I'm going to choose one of them. What team was number 1 on turnover margin last year? I'm going to give you 4 options.
Okay.
Number 1, NC State. Number 2, Washington. Number 3, Georgia. Number 4, USC.
Well, I don't think USC turned over other teams a lot. I'm gonna say Washington.
Incorrect.
Oh, name the teams again.
Washington,
Okay.
USC,
Okay.
Georgia, NC State.
I think Georgia would have been too easy. The only other team, I guess, NC State.
Incorrect. It was USC.
Really?
USC had the best turnover margin. And Lorick later, that was a great question because
That
you would think USC had a bad one based on how bad their defense was getting talked about.
Yeah, I'm shocked.
But if you actually think about it the other way, Caleb Williams was so good, he wasn't throwing interceptions.
He didn't turn the ball over a lot.
That's so you have to think about it that way. How many fumbles, I guess, did they have? But I want to say they had a 22 turnover margin, positive 22.
That's good.
And I think it was plus 1.5 per game. So that was the trivia. Again, make sure you guys like the video, comment down below any more trivia questions for us. Hit the notification bell. Make sure you guys comment so that way you guys can be put on the comment of the day. We just hit 725 subscribers. We are 275 away from hitting 1,000 and giving away another signed college football jersey. So make sure you guys join the community, share it to your friends, family, any other college football fans. We will see you guys tomorrow. Peace out.